1, 2, 3. Pin me, pay me. Today, we're talking about doing the JOB on the PPV. With Braun Strowman, Nia Jax, and yes, even Bo Dallas all tapping into the Job Squad, it seems that jobbers are making a long overdue return. But why is it that they fell out of fashion in the first place? And why is it so important that they come back in style? To be clear, a jobber is someone whose major purpose is to lose in wrestling. A jobber proper is not just a superstar that loses all the time. They're a wrestler with minimalistic fanfare, no entrance music, hey, no real televised entrance at all most of the time. And on top of that, they have the express purpose of being nothing more than a mere pin monkey. While guys like Dolph Ziggler, Bray Wyatt, and Zack Ryder tend to end most of their matches by looking up at the lights, they weren't hired for that express purpose, at least I don't think they were. So they don't count. Those are not the kind of wrestlers I'm talking about. Now, prior to the late 90s, jobbers were actually commonplace on weekly TV. Some even managed to make quite a name for themselves. Barry Horowitz, Dwayne Gill, and of course, the Brooklyn Brawler were all infamously part of the Biggest Losers Club. And yes, these guys are mostly known for getting their asses handed back to them like change, but that doesn't mean that they didn't pick up a win here and there throughout their careers. Barry Horowitz actually managed to scoop up a win against Skip, you know, Mr. No Gimmicks Needed, Chris Candido, back when he actually had a gimmick. Dwayne Gill would become Gillberg and actually win the WWF Light Heavyweight Championship. And the Brooklyn Brawler actually managed to eke out a win against the Human Berry Machine, Triple H. But do wins even matter? After all, isn't this supposed to be about the art of the job? Well, if you ask some people, winning doesn't matter at all. All that matters is getting paid. I mean, for the most part, actors don't complain about if their character dies or loses in a fight, so why should wrestlers be any different? If you get paid to work and your boss says you lose, then you lose. Period. Just that simple. And some would even go as far to say wins and losses don't matter in today's day and age because fans can't even remember 5 minutes ago, let alone who won or lost on Tuesday. However, I personally disagree with all that. Don't get me wrong, I'm still all about jobbers, but for different reasons, which we'll get into momentarily. Now, personally, I feel that when we see a superstar lose over and over again, his ability to put over wrestlers in the future actually gets diminished. Now, just to clarify, putting someone over isn't simply just losing to them. It's when a win over you is so big it actually skyrockets their career to the next plateau of stardom. That's what really putting someone over is. It also doesn't count if you undo it by beating them in subsequent matches right afterwards. And in terms of putting someone over, you can't look any further than Razor Ramon versus The Kid. That was a huge win. It launched a 1-2-3 Kid's career and made X-Pac into a star. No one saw that coming. But at the same hand, after that, how many people was Razor Ramon really able to put over? Sure, he did put Goldust over, but as time went on and he accumulated more and more losses, eventually Scott Hall's stock in doing the favors just kind of ran out. Scott Hall really never cared about winning or losing, thus the market got flooded with Scott Hall wins, and a victory over him eventually became worthless. Then we look at other wrestlers with this mentality like Kane or The Big Show, and sure, once upon a time, scoring a pinfall off of them was an accomplishment. But now, beating any one of these guys is kind of like the participation trophy of wrestling. And I will concede that for the most part, wins and losses don't really matter in the short term. However, I do think they still play a big part of the long game. However, they could and should mean more all around in general. Wins and losses don't matter as much as they used to, but it isn't because of your smartphone. It's because bookers just don't use them to construct a career like they once did. Promoters made losses mean less in the same way they made pay-per-views and titles mean less, because they're not special anymore. And by proxy, neither's winning. Winning was special because it was something that not everyone was capable of. When every week you saw superstar versus jobber, anytime you saw a guy win, you knew that he was instantaneously at least better than half the roster. And sure, the main event of All-American or Primetime Wrestling could feature Bret Hart defending his Intercontinental title against the Skinner, or maybe the Bushwhackers versus the Natural Disasters, but if you wanted to see Hulk Hogan versus the Macho Man, well, you had to wait till the next quarterly pay-per-view to get a chance of seeing that happen. I mean, how many times can we possibly see Cesaro versus The Miz or Sheamus versus Randy Orton before we just get sick of it? So now, if you ever did want to book a big feud between these guys, the anticipation is gone because we've seen the match umpteen times. What else are you gonna do? Why should we even care? With so many shows and so much wrestling being demanded from these guys, it seems that monotony is reaching critical mass. But jobbers can eliminate superstar redundancy by jumping in the way and taking the repetitive bullet for the greater good. So now when WrestleMania season hits and you want to book two superstars in a colossal feud, we can get excited again because it's a match we've never seen. Plus, if both superstars only face nothing but jobbers their whole careers, well, they're both undefeated. So now either guy has a chance to win and we don't really know. And don't worry, jobbing is not a life sentence. Many wrestlers start their careers off as jobbers, learning the ropes, paying their dues, and wrestling under some boring, bland, generic name. Then after they get some seasoning on them, they can get repackaged and start their career anew. Ultimately, jobbers went away because people thought they were too predictable. As soon as you saw this guy, you knew he was gonna lose, and no one cared. But that's why they exist. To not be cared about, to make the sacrifice play, to look bad, just so others can look good. In the end, that's the kind of hero that wrestling fans deserve, even if promoters don't think we need them right now. So we'll squash them, because they can take it. Because they're not our heroes, they're enhancement talent. They're the ones who choke on the money that Ted DiBiase shoves down their throats after he beats them. They're the guys that The Undertaker shoves into body bags. They're jobbers. Hey, thanks for watching. Who are some of your favorite unsung heroes? Is it Special Delivery Jones, Iron Mike Sharp, Leapin' Lanny Poffo? Let me know in the comments, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you did like this video, why don't you check out some of the other ones I got? I have one about whether or not wrestling actually is a sport. I also have another one about video games and wrestling. And don't forget to check me out on patreon.com. You can become a Dave Knows Wrestling champion. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for helping me do this show. Until next time, this has been Dave Knows.